This is ESPN Esports. I'm Ardo O'Cal. Happy to be joined by Dogman. The Atlanta Reign just defeated the Boston Uprising 3-0 on Sunday at the Washington Justice homestand. Very interesting. You guys had one matchup this weekend, preparing for hero pools. How has the week been? Just take us through the entire process.
So the entire week, I guess, we've been in Atlanta, in Georgia. And we've kind of just been in our own rooms practicing, playing against teams every day for maybe 6 hours. And then we have individual practice and then our own streams and stuff like that. So for the most part, it's been, pretty typical. Except with the hero bands coming out, all these teams are running different things, making it a lot more interesting, I guess, from a fan perspective, and making scrims a bit more, my team's right about the meta, maybe the other team's not right. And everybody's kind of running their own thing right now, yeah.
In press conferences all weekend long, we've heard mixed opinions on the hero pools and hero bans, and also some suggestions on what they would tweak, etc., certain players, GMs, etc. After you've having played on stage now with the hero pools in effect, just give us your top-line thoughts and also what you would change as well.
So after current hero bans, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so after
just the general process itself, not necessarily the specific heroes.
Yeah, gotcha. So I mean, I guess the general hero ban process, I think most players probably would prefer a system where bans happen by the teams or something like that, where it's like a voted thing, kind of a little bit more control for the teams, not necessarily for Blizzard. Obviously, with Overwatch League and how they want to do bans and stuff like that. It's fine. I mean, it's not like a really bad system. It's not like it's going to ruin my evening. Like, oh, man, this hero was banned and I didn't get a choice. Like, I mean, sure, it's a little bit, upsetting that we don't have, like, a say in it. But for the most part, we still have to do our jobs, and I think it's not the worst process. And then you asked me whether I'd want to change with it, maybe?
Well, like, for example, to your point about players getting more involved, there are a lot of people were saying, I wish that there was more weight. Like, if a hero had been used, let's say 90% usage in the Overwatch League in 1 week, maybe they have more of a chance of being banned as opposed to one that was 10%. For example, what we saw with the hero bans this week, for example.
Yeah, and I think right now, I kind of agree that maybe, like, the more heroes are played, like you said, like some players are saying, maybe it would be a good idea. But at the same time, like, the way I see it is, for the most part, week after week, with the broken heroes, the stronger heroes will more than likely just be played the next week after they're unbanned, So it's probably just going to be back and forth. I mean, realistically, it doesn't really matter who's banned. Everyone will kind of find a solution. And I think it'll probably be the same solutions, week after week. I think because of the bans, everybody that's banned 1 week will be unbanned the next week. So if some of those heroes were overpowered or really good, then they'll just come back the next week when they're not banned, right? So I think it'll be a little bit more repetitive, but I guess there'll still be variation compared to just running full one set of heroes. I guess for sure it's a little bit different.
A lot of people were talking about having to adapt on the fly. That's one of the biggest characteristics that will be valuable moving forward as hero pools are implemented further and further out. Did you feel that when you were on stage against Boston?
Yeah, I think so, and I think even in scrims, or in practice, we've always kind of adapted in those kind of, I guess, because every team, like I said earlier, is going to be different. Every team's going to run like dive or something else, or they'll do whatever they want. So we kind of have to adapt to not just the heroes, but more the play style. Okay. And that's like the number one key is that we have to determine, this comp's more divey, we have to play slower. Or this comp is more bunker, more slow, we have to poke their shield or take flanks. There's a lot of different things that go into it. And it's not necessarily just on the heroes, it's more based on the compositions we see and the different heroes that we see total overall, I guess, yeah.
One more question on just the structure of it before we get to this week's bans, which have just been announced. The fact that it changes every single week, and that means that the meta is going to change every single week, conceivably, and so that means scrims will be different, etc., preparations will be different. Yeah. Are you looking forward to that, or do you wish that it was a little bit longer?
I think I'm looking forward to, I don't know, I don't know if I'd say I'm looking forward to it necessarily. I mean, it's like, I think right now it's just kind of there, as in like the hero bans are just a thing that Blizzard sets, and week after week we have to adapt, and we have to change. And I think that's just the number one key is that, like, I just
do you wish it was longer? Like some players had said, I wish it was 2 weeks so that at least we could have, the ban set for 2 weeks, play on that, and then maybe have a hero ban after the fact.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess on the fact that like some players want hero bans to be more than 1 week, I think that's like an okay idea. I think it's like solid. But I think to be fair, even if the hero bans happen for 1 week, if it happens for 2 weeks, I think realistically it's like it's still going to give the teams that are good at that hero pool just a longer kind of run, and that's what Blizzard was trying to counteract, is that they don't want a meta to happen. So that's why they want to keep doing it week after week, right? So the thing is, when they do it week after week, it kind of limits the chance of a meta being developed or some teams being good at a certain hero pool. And when you get it week after week, they have to keep changing after week. So it's like, oh, we're good this week, but we're not as good next week because of the hero pool changes, right? So if it's for 2 weeks, some people will be worse for longer or better for longer. So I think this kind of what Blizzard did does negate, the chance of some sort of meta to form, I guess, for sure. So right now I think it's a solid idea for sure.
So let's talk about, speaking of solid, the solid bans for week 2. What a week for Soldier 76, by the way. 1% league usage in Overwatch League history. Yeah. This week it gets used by virtually everyone, and then gets banned. So Soldier 76, Winston, Lucio, and Sombra are banned. So when you think of those bans now, just take us through your real-time thoughts on what comps you could see happening, and even in particular as you're planning for your next matchups, just like your overall thoughts on that.
I guess like for the most part, with Winston, Soldier, Lucio, and Sombra being banned, we didn't really even like touch those heroes this weekend. That's the funny part, is that
Atlanta didn't.
Atlanta Reign didn't. The other teams, pretty much all the other teams, played this Soldier comp. We don't think it's good, but like everybody else thinks it's good.
Had you tried it in scrims?
We didn't try it. I think because we have like an A team and a B team right now. Our B team tried it, and they think it's good. We think it's solid. We just think that our strategy is better. Okay. I think even if Philly, because the thing is we scrimmed Philadelphia, and they used that comp against us, like our comp against us in practice, and they did well with it. And then they decided to not play that comp this weekend. They decided to play the Soldier comp, and I think realistically our comp they ran this weekend was probably the best comp. It's just like, for the most part, there's this weird parity in Overwatch League where every team, I mentioned earlier, but every team thinks they're right. And, not everybody's right. I think, for the most part, we could be wrong for sure. We could maybe have an ego and be like, oh, this is not the correct meta. Okay. But, for the most part, it doesn't really – these bans with Lucio, Sombra, and Soldier, and Winston, we never played those comps anyway. Okay. So I think it'll just kind of go back to, an older meta. May will probably still be meta. McCree will probably be back because it became unbanned. And like I said, a lot of the same repeated stuff that happened before hero bans will probably come back for sure.
So it seems like this would be advantageous for you then, these bans in particular. Atlanta could have a very good week on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think Atlanta could have a good week on it. But at the same time, this also changes how we use our roster. I won't really go in depth on it, but it changes who's subbed in and subbed out kind of. And for the most part, I think some of our players wanted to play some new refreshing heroes. They probably wanted some of the heroes that we played to be banned, so that we have a chance to flip it around or do something different. But for the most part, we'll probably do the same thing.
Do you think you'll see any interesting combinations come out of this? Just the last question for you. Just when you look at the rest of the hero pool that is available, do you see any interesting combinations that pop out?
I guess the interesting combinations that are going to come back are probably Ryan Diva. Ryan will be unbanned. Ryan Diva will be good. Probably May will still be there. And before hero bans, May and McCree were really good. Yeah. So probably see Ryan, Diva, May, McCree. There's no Lucio now because Lucio's banned. But Brigitte has always been kind of a sleeper pick. So for the most part, I think Brigitte will still be meta. And probably either Anna or Bap will probably be, the number one picks. Probably still, yeah.
Well, the Atlanta Reign victorious here in Washington. Dogman joining us here on ESPN Esports. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.